novel hitting the top of the charts, and the second one, Where Nightmares Live, fresh off the press. You just sent me that. Thank you. An innovator in content creation, launching new formats like Storytime with Mr. Ballin on YouTube, a trailblazer in the podcast world, earning consideration for a Golden Globe nomination. Ugh.
You too, dude.
Yeah.
You as well. We both almost got nominated.
Isn't that fucking wild?
Dude, it's crazy.
Did you ever?
No, all the awards that like we get, it's people don't know this, but you shamelessly put in for your own awards. So I should win this award, you know. And this is the first time that they're like, we've designated you could win this award. So that was cool.
Did you know that was coming?
No, I had no. I saw your name and I saw our podcast, and I was like, that's amazing, because I had no idea.
Dude? 2 seals.
Look at that, dude. Just carving our own path post-service, dude.
Love it. Love it,
man.
I love it. Are you going? Are you going to go no matter what?
I think that they're going to nominate like 6. So there's 25 of us, 25 shows. And I think it's like 6 get nominated, and then obviously 1 wins. That'd be pretty sick to get nominated, show up in like a flannel tuxedo or something on the red carpet.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
dude, but I would definitely go to that.
That blew me. I had no idea that, I think this is the first year they're even doing podcasts. And I was like, holy shit.
Look
that's
at us,
pretty
dude.
wild.
Mainstream.
Isn't that
We're making
crazy?
it, dude. Yeah, it feels like totally insane.
Well, if I see you there, I'll see you there, hopefully. But all right, so we're going to do some story time, some updates with you. But first, everybody gets a gift. Usually I give the gummy bears. I'm going to switch it up. We got these. You're going to like these, dude. And we got our campfire session tonight.
Yeah, dude. Look at this.
Vigilance Elite S'more Bites.
Dude. All right, and show the camera. There's like 700 cameras to show.
Yeah. Dude, you got to try those.
Much. I got the gummy bears last time. Those were excellent. I snatched them immediately.
I got you another thing, too.
Yeah, I can see.
Last time, I didn't get to do this because, we were in a hurry, but I think you'll enjoy this one. So I got a buddy over at SIG. His name's Jason. Wow. Huge fan of yours. I think you're going to like. You got any guesses?
I think I can guess. Full SIG action. Dude, thank you so much.
You know what that is?
That's SIG 226.
That is the updated SIG 226X Legion.
It's not a SIG pistol. There you go.
Definitely some clothing in there.
Yeah.
Maybe a boot.
I think you already got the book. But it's the new book.
Nice.
Signed in the inside there.
Where Nightmares Live.
Yep. The new anthology.
Dude, I love this, man. Like, this comics.
Yeah, dude, that's a labor of love for sure. Put those together.
Very cool.
Yep, and then the flannel. The flannel. So I gotta give you the. I don't know if you dabble in flannels. I obviously do. And I'm not sponsored in any way by this brand, but Fairy brand, which you may have already heard about.
I know.
They make the best flannels. That to me, and if you see, I got you the color there, so it's not like I'm not getting you can wear that in real life. It's just normal. You can wear that in real life.
Dude, this is nice.
Dude, and they don't wrinkle. You just throw them in a bag.
Love it.
So there you go. It's pretty equal to a sick P226.
Hey. I love flannels.
This is gorgeous, man. Thank you so much.
Yes, indeed. It is called Lothric, where the transitory lands of the Lords of Cinder converge. In venturing north, the pilgrims discover the truth of the old words. The fire fades, and the lords go without thrones. When the link of fire is threatened, the bell tolls, unearthing the old lords of Cinder from their graves. Aldrich, saint of the deep, Farron's undead legion, the Abyss Watchers. And the reclusive lord of the profaned capital. Yon the Giant. Only in truth, the lords will abandon their thrones. And the unkindled will rise. Nameless, accursed undead, unfit even to be cinder. And so it is that ash seeketh embers.
That's nuts, man. You know, I haven't shot since 2017. Like I got out of the teams. I got out of the teams in 2017.
It's like 8 years. You haven't shot a gun?
No.
Are you anti-gun now?
No, I just.
It's okay.
No, I'm not. I just have not shot it. So I got out, and I like dove into like entrepreneurship, you know, and like that's all I wanted. Because for me, my story is like, I got medically retired in 2017, but the timeline was shifted pretty aggressively. It was like, hey, you know, you're gonna get medically retired in part because of the injury I sustained in Afghanistan. I had some mental stuff going on, and they're like, yep, you're gonna get med boarded out. But they gave me, I want to say it was like over a year was my expected, like, this is when you'll leave the military by date. But it just got moved way up really quickly. Still got medically retired, and so so for the folks who don't know, you get a retirement check. You leave and you have some level of income, but it wasn't a lot. Mm-hmm. And so I was suddenly out with kids and a wife and like no plan. I was like, oh, in a year I'll figure it out when I get out, because my retirement date's over there. I'll figure it out. And so when I got out, I had to like, find a job, and it was sort of ironic in my effort to find a job for myself, I began like networking a lot, like meeting people in the city and like in New York. And I ended up sort of putting together these networking events with the help of this guy Jordan, who I met in the city. He's a former investment banker, not a veteran. He's a civilian. And we put together these amazing networking events that were actually for me to like meet employers and like get a job. But we brought other veterans to these events. We brought other employers, and everyone's like, "Wow, what great service this is!" And nobody was approaching me to get a job because they're like, "Oh, this is his job. He runs this like networking event," and I ended up doing that.
Like shit.
And so I created a job that helped people get jobs, and then shortly after that, I got into the Mr. Ballin thing. And honestly, dude, it's just there's another critical part of this. I sleepwalk like a maniac. And so my wife has always been like, I'm worried that you're gonna like shoot me. And so like that, oh, don't worry, I have a place to keep this. And I've been thinking about it. And so she has been anti-gun because did I tell you about my prolific sleepwalking?
I think you did.
I have, so this is according to ChatGPT. So this is not a true diagnosis, but I've gone to sleep studies. I've asked, I've seen sleep doctors and no one can figure out what's going on. Basically, I go to bed, and within about 30 minutes of falling asleep, I am up. This is most nights. This is
The majority of nights.
Okay, that's why I stretch. It's at least 2 or 3 times a week, at least. I wake up, and I'm in this half stupor. I sleep by myself. I have alarms set to the room that I sleep in. That Antonio, who's here, who's my security guy, he sets the alarms. So if I bolt in at night, he's alerted to it. And so I jump out of bed and I start running, screaming, "What the fuck is going on?"
Are
And then
you
I swear,
serious?
dude, it's like, it's crazy. And so to me, it's so normal that I'm like, oh, like I was doing this in the teams. Like in Afghanistan, I was doing this, but like, I don't know how I got in. So I get out of the military, and that was like the one thing my wife was like, you can't have a gun in the house. You're gonna like do something crazy with it. So it's a combination of get out, full civilian, full entrepreneur. But it's funny, I was actually gonna say to you, like, it's the one thing that I have let completely fall off. It's just shooting. And like I was gonna ask you, like, how often are you shooting? Like, is this like a thing you do every day? Because I feel like I want to reincorporate shooting into my life because it's just something that I haven't done since 2017.
Well, we'll start that today.
Dude, I'm probably the fucking worst shot ever right now, but I want to get back
I'm
into
not
it.
any good either. In fact, I don't really. I love shooting guns, but I'm not really into like all the shit we used to hear in the SEAL teams. You know what I mean? I think ARs and like, but
Yeah.
it's all good. I like them, but what I really like now is like the old Western shit, like revolvers
nice.
and lever actions.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
But yeah, but also like, yeah, I mean, when I left, you know what I mean, and started, you know, my entrepreneur journey, you know, started with tactics.
I remember watching videos of you out in the forest talking about your everyday carry. They were going like super viral.
Yeah. So I had to shoot for that, and then when I, you know, got tired of that shit, started the podcast. It kind of fell off until, well, it didn't kind of fell off. It fell off, but then we moved here. You know, we got a shooting range right off the back patio here. So, but I'm still pretty rusty.
Yeah, I mean, like, I remember in the teams, there were dudes that just, like, what they did is they, like, really kept dialed in, and you can just see it. When a dude's shooting a lot, it's just, they're so on point, they're so good, and for me, I was good enough to pass the test, because I was a team guy, you know, but I didn't have that, like, desire to, like, really become a great shot. I think I was, like, very average, if not below, but enough for the teams, and now it's, like, it became this daunting task over time. Then I'm like, well, if I want to get back into it, I gotta do it like discreetly too. I can't like go to an instructor and be like, yo, I'm a former Navy SEAL. I gotta learn how to shoot again. So I was gonna ask you, like, oh, I want to shoot with you.
Oh shit.
Yeah, dude.
Well, we'll do that on the break, but
Yeah.
dude, Halloween's right around the corner.
Yeah.
Last year we brought on an exorcist. It was awesome.
That's cool.
But you are the storyteller. So let's hear a story that you think goes along with something that's gonna scare the shit out of people.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about it. So I knew coming here that was a big part of this, is having some stories. And I would say this story I'm gonna tell you is, so I did did it actually on the live tour. I don't think you heard this one though. It was added in. Gets a big reaction from the crowd. So I've told this in front of thousands of people, and this one just. It's a great story. It's a great story. It's a fucking horrible story. It's a fucking horrible story. It's a great story. So in 1986, there's this family.
Is this real?
This is totally real.
This is legit.
Totally real. Yes.
Okay.
There's this guy named Frank, and he's got 2 daughters. He has an older daughter. This is 1986. This is in Pepperell, Massachusetts. So I think it's Western Mass. He's got 2 daughters. He's got a 15-year-old daughter named Tina and a 9-year-old daughter named Karen. And this is in, again, the fall of '86, and around this time frame, this family, the Bowens family, they had suffered this really awful loss. So Frank's wife and the 2 daughters' mother had passed away pretty unexpectedly from cancer. So she came on suddenly, she passed away, and it was this horrible thing. And so this has happened within a few months of when the story picks up in the fall of '86. However, the part of the dynamic here is that the wife, the mother, had been, a working mom, and her income had been meaningful to the household. So the blue-collar family, Frank and his wife's income were how they floated the family. And so when she passed, not only is there, all this grief in the household, of course, but there's also like a practical issue. Frank now was 50% of the income is gone, and he needs to find a way to provide for his family. And so in the immediate aftermath of her passing, Frank began taking all these extra shifts at work just to make ends meet. Just sort of what he had to do. But as a product of that was that Tina and Karen, who were sort of just old enough for this to be okay, they, as they're dealing with this incredible grief of losing their mom, who they were very close with, they began finding themselves alone quite a bit at their house, just alone, putting themselves to bed while their dad is out, taking late shifts. But they accepted this. It is what it is. Their dad loves them, and he's just trying to do the right thing for the family. So with that as the backdrop, there was this night where Frank was out at doing one of these late shifts. This is again sometime in like September of '86, and the girls are home. And the girls, the death of their mom is so new in some ways that they haven't quite moved to the point of acceptance. They still almost feel like mom's gonna come around the corner. Like it just feels unreal that she's gone. And they just felt desperately that they just wanted to have one more interaction with their mom. It's like they felt it in their bones. They just missed her so badly. And so with their dad gone for the night, the older girl, Tina, the 15-year-old, she asked the younger girl, hey, do you want to get the Ouija board out and try to contact mom? So for those who don't know what a Ouija board is...
Never a good idea.
Yeah, a Ouija board, it looks sort of like just a rectangular game board, and it has A through Z on it, A, B, C, D, all the letters of the alphabet. It has 0, up to 9, all the digits. And you put this, it's called a planchette. It's like this little dial that has felt tips, 3 prongs, felt tips that it sits on. And it's got a little viewfinder on the top of it that you can look through. It's like a little looking glass down onto the board. And when you use the Ouija board, if you believe that this thing works, you and whoever else, let's take Tina and Karen in this instance, they would rest their fingertips, they'd typically sit on opposite sides of the board, they'd rest their fingertips on the edge of this planchette. And the idea is, you don't move the planchette at all. You just like rest your fingers on the planchette. And if there's, spirits in the room, the idea is they will you ask a question with your fingers. Tina or Karen asks a question, hey mom, are you here? Their fingers are on the planchette, and if there's a spirit in the room, the idea is they will travel through your body and they'll manipulate your fingertips and they'll move the planchette around. Part of the reason why Ouija boards have become so popular is it's so easy, if there's a group of you, to be the one person that sort of subtly moves the planchette and give the impression like there's a group. So it is what it is. You believe it or you don't. People say that Ouija boards are a way to talk to the dead.
What do you believe?
I don't know. I don't know if the Ouija board works. I think that there is...
You tried one?
I have tried, yeah. And
Oh shit, where'd you try?
So we had one growing up. So we got the Ouija board. Now that I'm thinking about it, me and my sisters have been like having seances in our basement. So actually, I'm open. So anyways, these girls, they're like, okay, we wanna try to contact them. And so they get their Ouija board and their little planchette and they go to the basement and literally set up like a seance. The basement is just like this blank slab basement. There's a washer here, there's a couple of tools on a shelf, but it's a blank, concrete slab basement. And they put their Ouija board down, they light some candles, and they sit down and they put their fingers on the planchette and they begin asking questions, like sort of to the room. Hey mom, or if you're in here, give us a sign. And they look at the board and they're hoping it's going to move, but nothing happens. And over the course of the next hour, these girls tried every combination of question that they could ask, to try to inspire the spirit of their mother to come in here and talk to them. But no matter what they did, they couldn't get the planchette to move. And in some ways, it was sort of devastating. They're grieving the loss of their mom. They haven't really come to terms with it, and this felt like hope. Mom's gonna come through. We know it. She loves us, but nothing happens. And so they end up, packaging up the Ouija board, and they go back upstairs, and they go up to the second floor where their bedrooms are. And by this point, their dad, Frank, he's still at work. He's going to be out, past the time they would go to sleep. And Tina's the sort of responsible one. She's like, okay, we need to go to bed. And so the two, they go up to the second floor, they get ready for bed, and they go to their respective bedrooms. And so they get in their beds, the lights are off, the house is quiet, and they try to go to sleep. But after maybe only 20 or 30 minutes of laying in bed, they're both still awake, but they aren't aware of the other. They're in different rooms, but they're both awake. There's this tapping noise that begins to start in the house. And, at first it was sort of subtle, and both girls would report hearing it. But it wasn't clear if the tapping noise was, just a house sound. Houses make noises. Is it something outside? Is it the wind? Whatever it was. But more than that, it was kind of hard to pinpoint if it was coming from the floor they were on, the first floor, even the basement, is it outside? It just sort of felt like this almost omnipresent tapping sound. And it wasn't rhythmic, it wasn't consistent, it was sort of sporadic, but it was constant. It was a tapping sound that's sort of irregular, but constant. And so it very caught their ear. And Tina, the older one, she sort of is, just doing her best to forget about it and just try to go to bed. But Karen, the younger one, the 9-year-old, she can't sleep. She starts feeling, worried about this tapping sound. They've just done a seance in the basement, and now there's tapping in the house. She's a kid, it's scary. And so she leaves her bedroom and she goes, right over to the next room. Tina's in bed. Karen goes in and she's like, Tina, do you hear the tapping sound, in the house? And Tina's like, yeah, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. But the two, they're just sitting there, and Tina's trying to reassure Karen, but the tapping, it sort of begins to intensify a little bit. And Tina, she has this almost epiphany. And she's like, as she's trying to tell Karen not to worry about it, the tapping is getting louder, and she's like, what if that's Mom? We were just trying to contact her. What if the seance worked? What if Mom did hear us? Maybe she's here. Maybe she's in the house. Maybe she's trying to get in touch with us. Maybe her tapping is her trying to signal us in some way. And suddenly that hope that was dashed as their Ouija board session and their seance hadn't worked, it's all back now. They're suddenly riveted with this idea that the sounds they're hearing could be their mom, who they just want their mom back so bad that they're prepared to believe anything at this point. Like, oh my God, it's Mom. And so Tina and Karen, they get out of the bed and they walk into the hallway. Now at this point, they still can't quite tell where the tapping is coming from, but by the time they got into the hallway, it's clear it's not coming from the floor they're on. It's coming from somewhere downstairs. And so they go into the dark stairwell in the second floor hallway, and they're looking down into the stairwell, I should say, that kind of banks around down to the first floor. And all they can hear is just this periodic tapping, and it's coming from somewhere downstairs. And the two girls are standing at the top of the stairs, like not really sure what to do. And Tina, the older one, just suddenly goes, "Hey Mom, is that you?" The tapping stops for a second, and then they hear a rhythmic, and then there's silence again.
Oh, shit.
So there's a clear response. And the girls, they think at first that it's something that's, maybe it's coincidence. It can't be this immediate. It can't actually really be her. And so Tina again says,
Ashen one.
"Mom, really, is that you?" And this time even louder. There's 3 taps that come back from somewhere downstairs. Clearly, someone is in the house and they're interacting with the girls, and their dad's not home. But amazingly, the girls, remember, their mind state is, it's Mom. This is a good thing. We're excited about this. You know, to most children, this would be horrifying, but for them, in this part of their lives, this was confirmation that their mom is here. And it gave them an enormous amount of courage and happiness, frankly. And they're like, let's go down. Let's go downstairs and see what's going on. Let's see if we can, maybe Mom's down there. Who knows, right? Let's go down there. And so down the steps the girls go. And as they're going, they're asking more questions. And they're starting to sense that the tapping, which is louder now, they can kind of tell that it's not somewhere on the first floor. It actually sounds like it's coming from the basement, potentially. There's a door in their kitchen on the first floor that leads down to the basement. And it sort of sounds like the tapping's coming from down there, maybe even coming on the back side of that door. But they're going down the stairs and they're firing off more questions, like, Mom, like the questions they're asking are all over the place, but they're asking these questions, and each time they're getting that 3 taps in response, like they're sure it's Mom. They get to the kitchen, and now they've pinpointed the tapping is definitely coming from the basement. The door is shut to the basement. They go to the door, they open up the basement door, and they're looking down into like this stereotypically, terrifying basement. It's pitch black, it's wooden creaky stairs, they can't see anything down there. And despite how confident they were that like, this is Mom, this is where they drew the line. They're not prepared to go all the way into the basement where it's like, that's kind of horror movie territory, but they stood at the top of the stairs. And for an hour, they asked their mother questions. In their mind, they're talking to their mom. They're speaking into the basement, and they're asking all sorts of questions. Do you miss us? Tap, tap, tap. And sometimes they'd get like 4 or 5 taps, and they began to think that maybe that meant no, and 3 meant yes. But they had this whole thing, and they're like, it's Mom. It worked. The seance worked. But after an hour, their dad's still not home. They've had this unbelievable experience that they've chalked up to their mom. But then it just kind of stops. There's no more tapping. No matter what questions they ask, it just sort of stops. And the girls, they stayed awake, because they're sort of jazzed up by what's happened here. And around the time that the tapping has stopped, there's no more responses. Frank, their dad, comes home. He's surprised to see his kids awake in the kitchen. What are you guys doing? And they're like, oh, you wouldn't believe it, Dad. It's Mom. We got the Ouija board out. We had a seance. They kind of explain the whole thing that happened, but they're so excited about it. And they're like, Dad, it's Mom. We were talking to Mom. We know it's her. It has to be her. And now Frank also is in the process of going through what's an unbelievably bad situation for him. He's lost his wife. He has to work all these extra shifts. He can't be with his daughters. He's worried about his kids. And he's seeing his kids light up and be so excited at this idea that they're talking to their mom, that even though he does not think for a second that there's truth to what he's telling him, he doesn't think that there was tapping, he doesn't think their mom was in the house, he thinks that these are kids who've lost their mother, and they've come up with some coping mechanism, which is hearing, random house tapping sounds, and they've convinced themselves it's their mother. And so without any hesitation, he just goes, I bet that was your mom. That's wonderful. She's looking out for you. She'll always be looking out for you. Your mom she's here with you now. She'll always be here with you. Your mom loves you. And the girls are so pleased, and they run up to bed, so excited to, go tell their friends the next day. So they go to bed, and Frank, frankly, doesn't think much of it. He just is like, my kids are coping with a terrible tragedy, and if they want to do that, that seems harmless enough. So he goes to bed. Over the next few days, the tapping sounds would continue. Except they would only be heard by the girls. Frank would never hear the tapping sound. The girls would You know, they'd hear it coming from the basement, they'd call their dad, he'd listen, and there'd be no more taps. It was like they would disappear when Frank showed up. But oddly enough, the tapping was no longer just happening at night and just in the basement. The tapping was sort of happening all over the house. You know, it would happen outside the front door, it was in the kitchen, it was in the girls' bedrooms, it was everywhere. It was like the tapping was, it was always that tap, tap, tap when they were talking to him. It was like all over the house. But again, every time they'd hear it, wouldn't contribute to it, couldn't hear it. Frank's still telling himself that this is a relatively healthy coping mechanism, that it's not that big of a deal. But what ended up happening after about 3 days is the girls, they had convinced themselves that this is mom, right? This is a good thing. Well, by the third day post-seance, when the tapping is happening a lot, the tapping had sort of migrated primarily to the girls' bedrooms, and it was also happening mostly at night now. So by the third day, it's sort of like all the tapping is happening in their bedrooms. And it's namely under their beds, that they would hear the sound underneath their bed. And for the girls, they began to wonder why their mom would do that, because it just sort of feels like almost stereotypically terrifying for a kid. Something's under your bed. And they began to get this feeling that maybe this isn't mom. Maybe our seance worked, but we didn't bring mom's spirit into the house. Maybe we brought something malevolent, or just something other. We don't know. And so they're starting to question if this is really a good thing or not, and that's what Frank picked up on. It's been a few days. Frank picks up on that. The girls no longer view this as a good thing, and it's disrupting their sleep, and they would hear the tapping in the bed, and Frank would come into the room, there'd be nothing there, he had no explanation, but the girls are really spooked. And so it was at this point that Frank began taking a harder stance with his girls. Around the third night, he just said, look, I know you're going through it right now, and I understand that you're dealing with a lot with your mom, but this is not okay. This, whatever you guys believe you're hearing with this tapping sound, I'm telling you, you have nothing to worry about in this house, but it's not happening, okay? You're working yourself up over nothing, and you need to stop it. And if you can't, I understand, but we're gonna have to seek out professional help, like grief counseling or something, because it's not healthy for you all to be living in fear of a ghost in your house. That, it's just not okay. The girls are furious because they believed up until the third night that their dad accepted that the taps were real and that maybe it was their mom. And now he's sort of come out and been like, I don't believe you, and forget about it or else you're gonna go to therapy. And so it sparked like real issues between the daughters and the dad. The dad's really trying to do his best, but there's real tension here.
I love Roblox, but I don't have money to spend on Robux. Good thing
So following this confrontation, if you will, between Frank and his daughters, or whatever you want to call it, the tension between them remained. And for the girls, they felt like they didn't have their dad's support anymore, and they started to really be fearful of even being in their house. Like they didn't even want to be home anymore. It's like, it's terrifying when you're there. You hear these tapping sounds. And so over the next several days, so now we're looking at like, a week after the seance. So about a week later, the girls are finding every excuse to sleep over at friend's house and just be out of their house. And they're kind of jarring with their dad about like, did the tapping sounds happen or not? But when they're home, they hear the tapping sounds. And so fast forward about a week post-seance. And on this particular night, the girls didn't have a place to go. They didn't have a friend's house to crash at. Their dad was out working a late shift. And so they were there in their home that night, and there's nothing they could do about it. They had to go to bed and just deal with it. And the tapping is happening, pretty consistently at this point. Not literally at this point, but it's happening all the time. And so they're just like, okay, we just gotta get through the night, whatever. So the girls they're having their dinner in the kitchen. Their dad is at work, and at a certain point, the tapping starts, and it's coming from the basement. It's not the 3 rhythmic tappings, it's just this kind of periodic tapping that sort of was the precursor to they could ask questions and get those rapid responses. And Tina looks over at Karen and she's like, Dad doesn't believe us. And, the last week, every time this would happen, like, he would never hear it, he doesn't believe us. Like, we have to look into this. Like, he's not gonna look into this, we have to. And so there's active tapping in the basement. The door to the basement's right off the kitchen. And Karen is starting to get the sense that Tina's saying, we need to go into the basement right now and go look. Because they hadn't done that yet. They had never really actually investigated the sound.
Would you have gone down there?
Yeah.
Would you really?
As a child? No. No. I'm sorry. As an adult, me now? Yes. Yeah. As a child then? No way. No way.
I'd probably send my wife down.
You get in there. Check it out. And so Tina, is looking at Karen, who doesn't want to do this, but Tina grabs a knife off the kitchen counter and she's like, we have to go into the basement. We got to see what's down there. And Karen, she doesn't want to be up here alone, and so she's trying to tell Tina, like, no, we can't go down there, but she's like, fine. And so she gets behind Tina, and Tina goes over to the door, and the tapping's happening downstairs. And they open up the basement door, and the tapping stops right away. As soon as the door opens, the tapping stops. It was going all up until that point. Tapping stops. And down the stairs, the girls fell and walked down into the basement. And the light in the basement was one of those pull string lights that you have to get to in the basement. And so it's dark in the basement, and they're like wandering through this dark basement to get to the pull string. They get to the pull string, they pull it, and they're both like totally on edge. And they're looking around, and they would later say, on some level, we were like, there's gotta be some logical explanation. Like, for example, a raccoon got into the house. It wouldn't explain the responses we're getting with tapping sounds, but as a human being, we will go to great lengths to convince ourselves that we are okay in moments of crisis. A lot of times before you kind of cross the threshold into, oh my God, this is a horrible crisis, your brain will say, no, everything's fine, everything's good, like it's just a raccoon, and they're kind of hoping for that. But they get down there, they pull the light, and Tina's got her knife, and Karen's like tucked up behind her. And they're looking around the basement, and I told you before, there's like nothing in the basement. There's like a washer and dryer. There's a wood shelf, like a shelf with some tools on it over here, but there's not even storage down there. It's just like this vacant open space. There's nowhere to hide, and there's nothing down there. It is an utterly vacant space.
There's gotta be a hole in the floor or something.
Well, they looked all around the basement, and there's nothing there. They're looking for where a raccoon could have gotten in. But it's like, as they're looking, it's dawning on them that there isn't a clear answer here. We've definitely heard the tapping. Dad hasn't, we have. And we're down here at the source of the tapping in many ways, and there's nothing.
Then touch
And
the
they've sort of
darkness
mentally
within
shifted
you.
to it could be malevolent. And so they're having this big fear response. They're like, okay, we can't be down here. This is just horrifying. And so they turn and begin going back upstairs. And as they're walking up, they notice there's writing on the inside of the stairwell wall leading up to the first floor. They're walking up the stairs, and right on the wall, on the basement steps, written in red is, "I'm in your closet, come find me."
Oh, shit. Simply Safe is the security sponsor I trust with my property. Can a home security system really call itself security if it only responds once somebody is already inside? There's now a way you can
Run to their neighbor, they're banging on the door, it's late at night, it's out of the house, they were very free that. And so the girls see that, and obviously they sprint out of the basement, they bolt out of the house, they were very friendly with their neighbor, they run to their neighbor, they're banging on the door, it's late at night. The neighbor opens the door, they're like, what's going on? The girls are hysterical. They're like, oh my God, there's a ghost in our house. Like, there's writing on the walls. And, the neighbor is aware of the fact that they've lost their mother and, like, understands that this is a very difficult time for them. And so, no judgment passed, has no idea what's happening, just says, get in the house, we're gonna wait for your dad. You stay here, and we'll wait for your dad, and he'll know what to do. And so the girls, they're just happy to be away from their own house. Frank, not that much longer, comes home, and the neighbor sees him pull into the driveway, immediately flags him down, and as gently as he can, he explains, "They're here with me, they're fine. I don't know what's going on in the house. They seem very spooked about something to do with writing on the walls in your basement. I don't really know, but they're very shaken up. They're at my house right now, just want you to know." And Frank is like, okay, like he knows what this is about. Like, this has been going on now for a week, and really all he's thinking is, I guess I better plan for, therapy or something for my kids. And so he goes and tells his daughters, like, okay, I'm here, I'm gonna go check the house. Okay, you stay here, I'll go check it out, and I'll talk to you guys. And so he goes to his house, he goes inside, and he searches his whole house, and there's nobody there. He goes into the basement, and sure enough, written on the wall, it does say, "I'm in your closet, come find me," but it's written ketchup. Like, it's someone put it there, but his first thought is, my daughters clearly put it there. They're the ones sort of playing into this delusion here. This is like a really unhealthy thing they've done, and now they're like, acting out this whole thing with the neighbor, and it's becoming this big drama. Like this is clearly some huge, grief response. And so he leaves the house not concerned in the least that this is like a real problem. He's thinking this is an issue of my daughters. Like, my daughters are struggling here and they need professional help. And so he comes back over to the neighbor's house and he tells his girls, like, look, I know you're dealing with some tough stuff here, but enough is enough. We're gonna start grief therapy, like, literally tomorrow. And the girls, they did experience what they just experienced, and they don't even know what to make of it. I mean, now it's really gone from, this sort of tapping sound in the house to something very concrete, like almost a threatening message left that clearly was designed for them to find. But their dad doesn't believe them. They feel trapped. Like, what do you even do? And the girls are sort of resigned. They've been worn down by this. Therapy. And so the girls literally, like, I think it was the next day, started therapy. And wouldn't you know it, over the coming several weeks, there was no more tapping in the house. It was like everything went back to normal. Peace returned to the house, if you will. The girls were still terrified to be in the house, but even when they were alone, the tapping was gone. And, for Frank, he felt like, obviously, you're in therapy now. It's always been that. It's nothing more. It's been in your head, But it wouldn't stay that way. So